Welcome to New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan, and I'm an intuitive spiritual life coach. And today we're going to talk about how to stop worrying what others will think. And this is a very common pattern to keep worrying about how we will be perceived by others. And there's a number of ways why we would do this, but also what we're missing out on if we keep accommodating a norm, a social norm or an expectation that doesn't really deep down resonate with us. But it's very common to worry about what others will think about us. And are you worrying what others will think? And sometimes it can be very subtle. And for example, it can be to tone down your clothes at work to fit in, or not choosing to wear what you want at a party, to be worrying what people would think and not show who you truly are. Because as an example, clothing really can, when it's aligned with who we are, can really be an extension of us. And that's just an example. There are other situations, of course, that we just keep worrying about what others will think about us. Now, how does this pattern, because it is a pattern, that how we get into it, and often it is that we adopt social norms or family rules that are not said, or when we're young. And when we're young, we're just adopting and absorbing what's around us. And especially norms and rules, we take them as rules when we're young, but things that we believe that others expect from us to be accepted. And often it happens when we're young or young adults, and we try to conform and be like everyone else. But what happens is that when we step into adulthood, we bring the same pattern back into our adulthood, and we keep kind of compromising ourselves and our expression that way. So why do we want to stop this pattern of worrying what other people will think? Well, it's time. It's time to step up. It's time to step up and show yourself who you are. And because sometimes when we are worrying about what others will think and putting the energy towards that worrying, we're also blocking our own self-love and self-acceptance to come in. And sometimes that also provides some sort of distraction. If we don't want to go down the route of really truly getting to know ourselves and express ourselves in the way we truly want, because that could feel really powerful. We can feel empowered when we step into our true self. But if we are not really willing to do that, we can distract ourselves with worrying about what other people will think. And that way we close the door on things that we may need to go through or face in our lives to truly live and truly be happy. So that's why it's important to at least consider the pattern of worrying what others will think, because it projects the energy outwards instead of to ourself, which is self-love. We can also realize that no external factor can give us that self-love. And by worrying about what everyone else will think about us or other things that we do, it can also keep hindering our ability to give ourselves self-love. I hope that makes sense. So why does this matter? And along the lines on this conversation about self-love and self-acceptance, it matters because that's how we learn that we don't need an external circumstance to feel loved. And that's a big insight for many when we start to realize that this love that we're seeking by conforming to all sorts of things to be accepted is not necessary anymore. And now it's a time we're living in is an opening to more self-love and more self-acceptance to be served, so to say, within ourselves. Now, when we let our love in and feeling that love for ourselves, the way we are naturally, it also helps us to feel less judgment, because this pattern of worrying about what others will think also is serving a pattern of self-judgment and judgment against others. So if we want to get out of that route, or that hamster wheel, if you will, that will then make space for an opening for more self-love and self-acceptance, because we are already love. Let me ask you this question. How is your life affected by you worrying what other people will think? Is it that self-doubt that's generated often? Are you worrying that others are thinking that you're not a good enough parent, for example, which is very common? Or is it self-doubt that is generated when we're thinking that we're not, how am I perceived at work? Am I doing well enough at work, for example? What do people think about me at work? Or thirdly, the self-doubt that we can use in our relationship to be worried about if we're doing enough in a relationship. Am I loved by another person, for example, enough? And these are all examples of questions, obviously, but this pattern of worrying about what other people think of us is really helping to keep us where we're at, keep us in this energy of fear. And when we start to identify this pattern within ourselves, where it came from, most importantly, and choose to change it, that's when we also open up the door for more self-love and more self-acceptance within ourselves. So what's possible? What happens when we stop this pattern is that we basically stop worrying what other people think about us. And we also provide an opening to stop judging ourselves and others. So, and wouldn't that be great? Because a lot of us are spending a lot of time in self-judgment or judging others on a daily basis. And if we stop worrying and let more of our own expression to be the way it is, we also experience more self-love within, and we open up for allowing others to be who they are as well. So today in this episode, I'm offering up an opportunity to tap into this shift right now in this moment, to how to stop worrying about what other people think. So if you want to experience this, I invite you to join. If you're driving a car, don't do this, but otherwise, if you're here, let's take the opportunity to experience this shift. Put your hands on your heart and lightly push against your rib cage to feel your heart beating in there. And take a deep breath in and out. And gently close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. And we're going to repeat this sentence 3 times. So keep your eyes closed here. Really feel your heart, push your hands towards your rib cage, and say after me. I am enough just the way I am. I am enough just the way I am. I am enough just the way I am. And you can repeat this every day or until you believe it. And that's the important part here. It's one thing to say it to yourself, but it's another thing. The next level is to believe it. And it requires repetition. So I invite you to repeat this sentence every day for 30 days with your hands on your heart and feeling into it until you believe it. Thank you for listening today at New Light Living Podcast. I'm Ulrika Sullivan. I invite you to our next